This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Today's podcast is brought to you by Water and Wellness. Recently, I had the opportunity to visit Water and Wellness at their offices, and I can tell you that as far as you and I are concerned and our health is concerned, this is one of the most important places that you can go to find water that is purified and products that will help your longevity and your overall health. Visit waterandwellness.com to learn how you can take control of your drinking water and learn about those natural additives to optimize your health and longevity. Contact Stacy at 877-296-6880. Use the Ageless code and you'll get a 20% discount on all your products.
My love for you is immeasurable. My respect for you immense. You're ageless, timeless, lace and fineness, your beauty and elegance.
Hello, everybody. This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Well, today I have a guest that I've been waiting anxiously for the last couple of months to be able to grab some of his time to come on our show. His name is Dr. Gil Blander. He's living in, he's working remotely these days with the COVID crisis. So as we all are, I'm in San Francisco and he's in a suburb outside of Boston. InsideTracker is the company that he founded in 2009. And that is one of the leading edge and cutting edge genetic diagnostic companies that helps people to be what we are all about, ageless and timeless. So Dr. Blander, thank you so much for joining us today from Boston. And we want actually to hear all about InsideTracker and your vision. However, before we do that, I wish, our viewers always want to know a little bit about the human being that's behind the vision and the company. So why don't you start off by telling us about you, how you began. I know you're world famous and internationally known in terms of the lectures that you've given and the work that you've done in this world of DNA testing. So why don't you give us a quick thumbnail of your journey to where we are today?
Sure, and thank you so much, Michelle. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm a scientist in background, Ph.D. from the Weizman Institute of Science in Israel. And then I moved to MIT to do a postdoctoral fellowship. I spent 5 years at MIT in one of the best labs that studied aging in the world, the lab of Lenny Guarente. And during the time there, or when I arrived there, my goal was to basically publish a few papers and then get accepted to be a professor at the Weizman Institute, go back to Israel and live my life there. But when I arrived to MIT, I started to be exposed to the biopharmaceutical high-tech environment of Kendall Square, which is the area around MIT. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of biotech, high-tech, and pharmaceutical companies around. And I realized that I can contribute more to humanity and specifically allow people, hopefully, to live longer, better life if I will start my own company than being a professor in the academia that might publish 1 or 2 papers a year that maybe 1 or 2 other scientists will read. So I started to be exposed to that. And after 5 years at MIT, which were great, and we made a lot of discoveries, and I think that I learned a lot from Lenny Guarente and other renowned professors at MIT and Harvard and other places. I moved to the industry, worked there for a couple of years, and then came with the idea of InsideTracker. And the idea of InsideTracker is very simple. Let's understand what's happening inside our body and then optimize our body based on that. And hopefully by that, by optimizing the complex machine that they call the human being, allow us to live a longer, better life. So the first step was to try to understand what can we do or how can we know what's happening inside the body. Because Michelle, you and me are a human being, and if you look at our DNA, We are more than 99% the same, but a lot of the things that, a lot of the molecules that running via our vein, our blood, are different. So we said, let's try to understand what is different between person A to person B, and then understand also what are the issues that this person have, and then give that person an intervention, basically a recommendation what he should do. And hopefully by that, that person can be better, and hopefully will live a longer, better life. So we decided to look into blood biomarkers. So blood biomarkers are basically biomarkers such as glucose and cholesterol and testosterone and inflammation marker that allowing us to understand what is the status of your body today. And then based on that, again, to give you some recommendation, what food to eat, what supplement to take, what exercise to do, and what lifestyle changes to perform. We chose blood biomarkers because there are a lot of value in blood. First, blood is validate and calibrate everything. If you think about it, in the last 100 years, there is a lot of research about blood biomarkers. What is the range for each person, for each age? What are the intervention? What can you do in order to take, if your glucose is high, what can you do in order to decrease the glucose? So there are maybe hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of papers that are talking about a specific blood biomarker. Second, blood biomarker, in contrast to DNA, it's changing all the time. DNA, you're born with it and you will die with it. Blood biomarker, my glucose today is 60, tomorrow it can be 80. So blood biomarkers are changing. So basically we can test and then give you a recommendation and test again, and hopefully we'll see the change. So it's very, not very easy, but it's possible to modulate it, okay? So we start, sorry, you have a question.
Yes, I was going to ask you. So one of the things I've been studying this for quite a long time, and I'm very curious to hear from a scientist the answer. But when you do a blood test, you're only seeing a point in time. I mean, it's what is going on in your body at that moment.
Right.
How can you then extrapolate and make recommendations based on that moment in time? Like you just said, you could have, let's just say your cortisol. Your cortisol in the morning is going to be different than your cortisol after a stressful day. Right. So how I realize you have to be fasting when you do your test, right? So it's usually going to be in the morning. But just as a more generic example, how do you calibrate the fact that that issue is kind of an obstacle for you to make generalized recommendations when people's blood can vary according to the time of day or what they've been doing that day or the day before? So, maybe just try to explain that to us.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very good question. And indeed, the blood is changing a lot. So what we are doing first, we recommend our customer to test in the morning after overnight fasting. So that's take care of all the metabolic related markers. We also, you mentioned cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and testosterone is another hormone. They are changing during the day. But if you test at the same time, or more importantly, the gap of the time between your wake-up time and the time that you are testing, if you always test, let's say, 2 hours after wake-up time, that will show us the level of 2 hours after wake-up time, because those hormones are following the 24-hour cycle. It's a chronobiology called in science. So basically, if you always test 2 hours after wake up, we see what is your cortisol then, and then it will be more or less average. You ask about exercise, so that's also a very good point. So we are not recommending our user to test after a marathon run. It's better to wait a day or two after a heavy exercise, but try to keep it at the same level. So we are having a lot of instruction to allow us to try to understand you at that specific time. Now, in addition to that, I see or we see InsideTracker as a lifetime endeavor. It's not like one snapshot of your body. So we would like you to test at least once a year. It's even better twice a year. And then we are starting to see a trend. Because if you test again and again and again and again, you're starting to see a trend of what happened in your body. I have, I would say, around 30 different time points that I tested in the last decade. So I can see the trend of my marker, and if suddenly something is jumping up or jumping down, it's very easy to see because I have so many points. So what I'm saying, first, you need to test at the same time of the day, and very importantly, the gap between the wake-up time and the testing time. You need to be sure that you haven't done a crazy exercise if you are someone that
Right.
exercises.
And fasting. You said fasting.
Yeah, and
So,
exactly.
for
And do
example,
it.
your triglycerides would be affected if you had food, or your cholesterol. So you always have to fast if you're
Correct.
doing those biomarkers. So
Correct.
is there any one biomarker that stands out above the rest to help you to interpret the results and recommendations that you make to your customers?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that there is one. We are currently testing 45 blood biomarkers. By the way, we're also testing DNA, and we are
Mm.
also have connected to activity tracker. So we are receiving for activity tracker data about your sleep, REM sleep, deep sleep, total sleep, resting heart rate, and other data. What is nice about the activity tracker that the data come every day, and we, similarly to the blood data, we're also giving you your optimal range, because if you look at your Fitbit, for example, they will tell you, hey, you need to do 10,000 steps, or your REM sleep is 20%. But they aren't telling you, is it good? Is it too much? Is it too little? So we are telling our users for the blood biomarker and for the activity physiological marker, where are you standing, whether you are in the optimal zone or not. And then we are, based on that, we are giving you some recommendation what to do. So we have around 5 physiological markers, another 45 blood biomarkers. I can name a few, but I don't think that there is one that is the most important, because we are looking at it holistically. So
Mm-hmm.
more data allow us to understand better your body. And I can give you an example. We are looking at all the metabolic related, glucose and cholesterol and the lipids and all of that. Okay, so that's looking at your metabolism. Then we are
Mm-hmm.
looking at the inflammation, hsCRP, white blood cells, lymphocytes, and so on. So we have 8 different blood biomarkers that are looking at inflammation. And as you know, inflammation is so important right now, especially for the COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
maintaining it well will allow you to fight the COVID in case that you will need to fight it. And then you have the vitamins, vitamin B12 and vitamin D. And again, I'm sure that you heard that vitamin D is very, very important for, there is a strong correlation between the level of vitamin D and the way that you can fight COVID. And then we're looking at other markers like liver health marker. We have a few markers that looking at how good is your liver detoxifying whatever you need to do. We are looking at iron. Iron is also very important. Basically, iron take the oxygen from your lung to the muscle and to the brain. So it's very important to be sure that all okay. Again, we have a lot of markers related to that. As you mentioned before, we're looking at hormones such as cortisol and testosterone and sex hormone binding globulin. They are also very important. So I would say we have a lot of minerals that we are looking at. So I think that everything is important. What a user can do is to come and say, I'm interested specifically in weight loss, or I'm interested specifically in sleep, or I'm interested specifically in improving my athletic performance. And then for that specific need, we have a specific marker that are very related to that.
Okay, so obviously the immune system is what 70% of it is in the GI tract, and yet you mentioned the liver and obviously the liver enzymes. Do you do a full workup on the GI tract as well as the liver in order to see all the other organs that are affecting digestion, assimilation, and nutrition? Because I know you do a big follow-up with nutrition as well as exercise. So how do you calibrate that GI tract in a blood test?
So as you know, the GI tract is not the GI tract, but there is something that's called microbiome.
Microbiome, right.
Yeah. And there are basically, if you think about it or not think about it, the data show that we have more bacteria in our body than the number of cells that we have in our body. So
That's
we have a lot
right.
of bacteria in our body. Those bacteria, some of them are good, some of them are bad. Some of them are helping us, for example, to absorb vitamin B12. Some of them are not helping us to absorb vitamin B12. Um, so we have some, we are using some of the blood biomarkers to show us whether you have a issue related to that. But we are not looking specifically for markers specific for the GI tract, such as I know that, I'm sure that you know that there are today a lot of offerings that saying, hey, we'll test your microbiome and we'll tell you what to eat. We haven't seen enough evidence in the literature that can tell us, hey, if you have a 10% of this kind of bacteria, you need to eat more of that. It's not the case right now yet. I think that it's a very new field. It's less than a decade old. And because of that, there is a lot of, I would say, dust, like it's a dust storm and a lot of dust, and we don't know what is right and what is wrong. So we decided not to go into that yet. We have scientists that are researching it, but we don't believe that it's ready for a prime time yet. So we are not looking into that, but we are the blood biomarkers and the genetics, and even the data from the activity tracker helping us to zoom in and optimize your body holistically.
And Gil, we all know that everyone has heavy metals in their body. It's just a fact of modern life.
Yeah.
And yet heavy metals, it's hard to get the testing on a blood test, right? You usually have to do saliva or urine or something that's a little more specific. And so how do you accommodate to try to get people to get their overall health and their aging under your management and hopefully improvement? How do you deal with the heavy metals issue?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So in the past, we looked into zinc and chromium and other. What we found that I would say the majority of our users haven't had a problem with that. And also those tests are not easily to perform in a sense that the diagnostic lab that we are using are the same labs that your physician are using. So it's a very good and high quality labs. So apparently their machine are always stuck when they are testing zinc and the chromium and all of that. So we, based on those two facts, that first, we haven't seen a lot of issue with that, and we haven't seen, and the machine were stuck and it's made a lot of problem for us. We decided for now not to test for those. So currently we are not doing that. What we are doing related to longevity and aging is we are doing the blood biomarkers to basically calculate your age. We call it an inner age. It's basically your biological age. So we are looking at all the blood biomarkers, not all, but 18 blood biomarkers that are, we found that they have a correlation with longevity, meaning that they're either going down or up during the aging process, and trying to compare you to our population. So we have tens of thousands of users, and we have a graph that shows either this marker is going down or up, let's say glucose is going up, and then we are saying, hey, you are 25 and you are male or female, how you stand comparing to the whole population? Are you above or below? And based on that, we're saying, oh, your glucose making you 2.5 years younger or older. And then we combine all of that together and giving you a score that we call inner age. I think that that's a very good score because that's actually looking at, again, holistically about your body, giving you a score, one number, that's saying, okay, are you 2 years or younger or 2 years older than your chronological age? And then also giving you recommendation, what food you should eat, what supplement you should take, what exercise you should do more or less, and what lifestyle changes you should do in order to improve your inner age and hopefully allow you to live longer, better life.
So, and then what about the DNA? How obviously DNA, telomeres, the stem cells, they've become kind of the hot buttons of longevity. How do you actually measure DNA? Or first, why don't you start by just defining DNA for the layperson? I think we can all say it's our genetic composition. However, can you give us a little more meat on the bone there?
Sure. So DNA is our basically our genetic. It's our potential, basically genetic code. It's based on the DNA. The DNA translate to our body, so it will decide whether you will have a blue eye or brown eye, whether you will be tall or short, and so on and so forth. So the DNA give us everything. That's basically the code that or the plan that the builders can build our body. What is interesting about the DNA, that is not changing, it's stable. So unless I know, you have a cancer, the DNA will stay the same from the day that you got born to the day that you will die. And because of that, there is no need to test DNA a lot of time. If you've done a good sequencing of your DNA, one sequence is enough, again, if the quality is good and if it's going deep enough. So today, usually what the companies are doing, or what we are doing, but other companies such as 23andMe and Ancestry, they are doing genotyping. Basically, they are looking at specific sites on your DNA, hundreds of thousands of sites that have a single nucleotide polymorphism, meaning that at those sites, there is a difference between one population to each other. So one nucleotide change. Basically, in one person it can be A, in other it can be C, or in one it can be G or a T, okay? And those areas are interesting because there is a lot of data in the peer-reviewed publication that show that a specific area like that are actually related to a specific condition. For example, you might have a higher chance for a gluten intolerance. You might have a higher chance to have high glucose. You might be better in strength versus endurance. So those single nucleotide polymorphism are very interesting. Again, I said that usually those companies and us are testing hundreds of thousands of them. Okay, there are millions of them in the body, but based on the knowledge and based on what you are looking for, you build a specific array of those hundreds of thousands. Then what we do is, one of them is not enough because usually the effect, let's say you have, whether you are predisposed to high glucose, there are tens of, if not hundreds of those single nucleotide polymorphism that influence that. So what we do, we combine all of them together to one score, and then we are coming and telling you, you have a high risk to have high glucose, low risk to have high glucose, or normal risk to have high glucose. Then we can combine it with the blood and come say, not only that you have high glucose, but you also have high risk to have high glucose. Or another way, you have a low risk to have high glucose, but you have high glucose. That means that most likely your lifestyle make you to be high glucose because your genetic doesn't say that you have high glucose. So what we are doing, we combine the blood and DNA together to give you a higher resolution picture of your body. It's not only what's happening today, but also what is your destiny, or what are the cards that you got. If you got a good card, like a card to have low glucose, which is good, but you have high glucose, which is bad, that means that most likely your lifestyle is not good enough and you need to work on it. Okay.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So let's just say you get the test back and your DNA says all the good things that you just mentioned. You have low predisposition to all these chronic illnesses, and yet you're testing, like you said, for some of these that are out of line. That's actually more to the strength of what InsideTracker does, because then you can control through diet, exercise, and supplements. If the DNA says you're predisposed to those and you still have those, that's a different dynamic, because now you're dealing with genetics plus the lifestyle.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes, I think that it's a good point, but we need to understand that I think that let's say the general population think that genetic is let's say a control 99% of what we are, and it's right when we are grown. But when you are older, a lot the environment sometimes have more effect than the DNA. Meaning, even so that you have a predisposition, you have higher chance to have high glucose. It doesn't mean that you have high glucose today. It's increase your risk. And usually, if you look at the DNA effect on, let's say, blood glucose or cholesterol or inflammation, the DNA fraction is usually much, much smaller than the fraction of the lifestyle. And you can see it in, there is a lot of data of the Japanese population that came to the US, okay? In Japan, most of them doesn't have any cardiovascular issue, the majority of them. They're coming to the US, they started to go to McDonald's, Starbucks, and so on. And suddenly they are starting to be more exposed. So there is a lot of data that actually suggests that, yeah, you have the DNA risk, then you have a higher chance to have it, but it's not like it's 100% that you will have it. You can fight it. So basically, when you see that you have predisposition to high glucose, you need to fight harder in order to not to get it.
I would say, though, that you have a little harder job with the people who have predispositions, because then this is a lot to do with psychology, right? And what people's attitudes are and how they approach their health and whether they're going to take charge and so forth. And if they get a test back that shows that they have all these predispositions because their their DNA is not as powerful, let's say, or as helpful to their health, then you're fighting a bigger battle, because now you got to get over the obstacle of their believing that they already are predisposed. And even if they're not yet showing the lifestyle signs, there's still that kind of like a negative reaction to the fact that, hey, I've got all these conditions that I'm predisposed to, but I may not be manifesting them yet. Do you see what I'm saying? So particularly if it's somebody in their, 20s, 30s, but the DNA shows that they have this material, DNA material that's going to affect them later on in life. So I guess my simple way to ask the question is, how do you deal with the psychological side of your testing with your patients?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's all communication and behavioral science. So you need to explain to them what I explained to you, that indeed you have a higher chance to have a high glucose, but it's not all the story. And I can give you another example. I am predisposed to being a gluten intolerance based on my DNA. When we look at it carefully, that means that I have 4 times more chance to have to be gluten intolerant than the average American. But the average American have only 1%. So what does it mean? My chance is 4%. Okay, 4% is still very low. And indeed, I'm not a gluten intolerant. So again, we need, and I think that I'm talking about the scientific community, we need to communicate to the large population that the DNA effect, as I said before, is not as big as the environment and your behavior. So you can, even if you are predisposed to high glucose, you can fight it. And that's what we are trying to do at InsideTracker, to communicate it to you and give you the right tool to fight it and to keep yourself in a normal glucose.
What is the new product that you've just introduced, the InnerAge 2.0? How is that going to, or define what that is for us, and how that's going to change what InsideTracker is accomplishing?
Sure. So InnerAge 2.0 is our new InnerAge. We came with InnerAge 5 years ago. Basically, the InnerAge at that time was based on a peer-reviewed scientific publication, and we looked at 5 blood biomarkers. With time, we accumulated more and more data from our own users. So that's allow us basically to develop a inner age based on our population. And you need to understand that if you look at the scientific publication, the majority of the data came from a sick population. And our population is much more healthier, and we show that it's better to build something that is based on them and not based on a population that doesn't resemble them. So we look at the data of our users, and we build basically a tool that look at how each marker change over time during the aging process, and fitting you on the graph and seeing whether you are above the line or below the line. If the line is going up, it's better for you to be below the line. If the line is going down, it's better for you to be above the line. And then based on the distance from you from the line of how the line is moving, we can basically calculate how this marker making you younger or older. And then we combine all the markers together and giving you a score that we call inner age. And if your inner age is lower than your chronological age, that means that you are aging slower. If your inner age is higher than chronological age, that means that you are aging faster.
I love what you're doing. And I know that a lot of people are confused because they don't know what you accomplish. They don't know how to approach it. So let's just take it from day one. Okay. So somebody listens to my podcast today and they say, I want to try this because, a lot of people have done the 1, 2, 3 and me, right? Is that, do you consider them your competition, or are they just an adjunct?
Yeah, 23andMe is more like
23andMe, I'm sorry.
Yeah. 23andMe are more like I will call it infotainment. Basically, they are showing you data. They're showing, oh, you are 25% African and 50% American, and giving you some interesting information, but it's not actionable. What we are doing with the DNA is basically combining the DNA alone, as I tried to convey before, is not interesting enough. I think that what the power of the DNA come together with the blood. So we are combining the DNA with the blood and then giving you a full picture of yourself. But so no, I don't see 23andMe as a competition. I think that it's a very interesting and good player in the field.
Yeah, it's compatible, really. Yeah. And I think what you're saying here for our viewers is that you could do that test, and that would be one data point. However, you're going to go much further because you're getting into the total picture of the health and wellness and combined with the DNA. So, okay, so let's go back to somebody contacts your company after viewing this podcast and they want to do the test. Give us the steps of what a person needs to do and what should they expect from their involvement with you, and how much does it cost? Of course, everybody wants to know that these days.
Yeah. So if you already done the 23andMe test, you can upload the DNA data at our platform website, and that will cost only $29. So if you have DNA data, we don't want you to test again because, as I said before, DNA is a DNA. So you can, if you done 23andMe or Ancestry, you can upload it, and then we'll give you the DNA picture, and that's cost $29. Okay. If you don't have DNA, you can do it with us. We will send you a kit very similar to 23andMe. Collect your swab and send it to our lab and get back to us, and that's cost around $250. So that's about DNA. But again, as I said, the blood is it's a liquid gold. It validates and calibrates everything. So we have a few different plans of blood. For example, if you have your data from your primary care physician, you can basically take a picture of it using your smartphone or scan it and upload it into our platform, and we'll extract the data from that. That's cost $49. So again, I don't think that it's expensive. If you don't have blood data, we can send you a DNA kit. So basically a kit that arrive to your house. You will prick your finger, a few drops of blood, and send it to the lab that we are working with, and then we'll get the data. That's another option. Another option is for you to go to Quest Diagnostic. That's the biggest lab in the US. They have 2,000 different clinics around the US. You go there, they take a blood and analyze it. Another option is if you don't want to go to the lab, especially now with COVID, some people don't like to go to the lab. We can send a technician to your home or office. They will come, take the blood, and send it to the lab and basically send the data to us. So all of that then going into our platform. And in our platform, as I mentioned before, we are trying to fit all the data that we got from your blood with all of your demographic information, what food do you eat, how you exercise, how you sleep, what are your goals. All of that combined together with a peer-reviewed scientific publication, the driven recommendations. And then based on that, we're coming and telling you, hey, first, what happened with your blood biomarkers? Is your glucose is too high or not? Is your cholesterol is too high or not? We also came with another zone that's called optimal. So if you go to your physician in the example of glucose, everyone will be normal if they are between 65 to 99. Doesn't matter if you are male or female, young or old, tall or short, monk or drinking alcohol like crazy. Everyone will have the same zone. We said that it's not okay. So we extracted from peer-reviewed scientific publication data that allow us to give a zone for you based on your age and gender and ethnicity and so on. So everyone has his own zone that is usually narrower than the normal zone. And then we will tell you whether you are optimal, normal, or out of normal. Now, if you are out of optimal or out of normal, we'll give you a recommendation what kind of food you should eat, what kind of supplement, exercise, and lifestyle changes, okay? Now, you need to understand that if you look at the kind of food that's available for us today, there are around 8,000 different food items in the world, okay? If you look at the average American in an average week, we are consuming only 20 food items. So we have a universe like that, and we are consuming a very small piece of the universe.
Right, it's called habit.
Yeah.
Habit and routine, right? People tend to stay with what they know and feel comfortable with. That's absolutely right.
And more than that, if you look at that and you compare your diet to someone else, most of us are eating the same food item. We eat banana, and we eat chicken, and we eat dairy, and we eat egg.
Right.
But there are actually almost 8,000 other food around. So we are trying to educate our population. Hey, there are a lot of different kinds of food. But second, we are trying to feed the food that's good for you. So what we are trying to do is actually take the medicine cabinet from the bathroom to the refrigerator. Instead of every day take a supplement X and supplement Y, a lot of the things you can treat with food. Let's use food as the medicine, okay?
Right.
So we are trying to feed you to the right food. And then in some cases, you need to take supplement. For example, if your vitamin D is low and you live in Boston, in the winter, it's very hard for you to get the vitamin D from the sun.
Right, from the sunshine.
Yeah, so you need to take supplement. We're also giving you some recommendation about exercise and lifestyle. So basically what we are doing, if I'm trying to do it in a nutshell, first we are trying to understand what's happening in your body based on a questionnaire. We're asking questions based on a blood, DNA, activity tracker, or one of them. Then we are telling you what are the issues that you have. And then we are giving you a plan. Eat more of this food, okay? Eat more this mushroom, or eat more this berry, or eat more this nut, or this whatever food. And sometimes you need to take more or less supplement. We see that a lot of people are over supplementing. So sometimes stop taking this multivitamin, or stop taking this supplement, because we see that the level of that supplement going to the roof. So basically, we're giving you a plan of a few different interventions. You follow those interventions, and then after a few months, let's test again and see what's happening in your body. And the goal is to allow you, if you continue to do that again and again and again, you have a better chance, hopefully, to live longer, but also to improve the health span, because there is a lifespan and there is a health span. Lifespan is meaning how long it took from the moment that you were born to the moment that you died. But actually, I don't want to spend the last 20 years lying on a bed connected to a lot of tubes. What I want to do is in the last 20 years to conquer the mountain, to exercise, to have fun, to travel the world. And everyone wants to do it. So we are trying also to help you to improve your health span, not only the lifespan.
Exactly. That's what Ageless and Timeless is aligned with you so closely, because that's exactly our vision too, is not to live longer, but to live better, to live longer and better, quality versus quantity, right?
Exactly.
So people have food allergies, and that's not being tested with a regular blood, the regular CBC blood test that you're going to be doing. And yet you're going to be giving recommendations on nutrition. So how do you accommodate for the fact that some people have aversions and you're not going to know that, and yet you might be recommending those foods?
So first we are asking a lot of questions about food. So if you are, so there is a difference between food allergy and food sensitivity. Okay. There are a lot of companies outside, and I won't name names, that selling kits for food sensitivity. I've done a lot of research about those tests, and the correlation between those food sensitivity tests and the real world is almost zero. So basically, everyone that listening, don't buy those tests. There are other tests that call food allergies. And the food allergy is really a good test that also the physician knows. So basically, when you are allergic, you will know that, and the food allergy will see it. So you will you see rash on your skin, or you will have hard time to breathe, and so on. So what we are doing, we are asking our users question about, do you eat X, or do you eat this food? And then if someone is saying, I'm not eating this food at all, we won't recommend it to him, because we know, hey, this food is, or this group of foods, okay? Second, we, in our DNA test, as I mentioned before, we're also looking at a few of those food sensitivities, food allergies, sorry. And that's also giving us some information. But as a rule of thumb, if you don't know that you have allergies, most likely you don't have allergies. Okay, you might have it, and it's something actually that we are planning to add later, but the chances are very slim.
Okay, so Gil, because I don't want us to run out of time. So what would you like to do better? What do you feel is missing? And what are your goals for the future for InsideTracker to improve, constantly be improving?
Yeah, so one point is what we discussed a few seconds ago. We are working on adding a food allergy. So let's look at food allergy and be a bit more precise.
I promise you, Gil, I didn't know that. I didn't ask that question because I knew that was on your list of improvements. But, however, I think it's a very pragmatic issue, and one that I'm not surprised you're saying is on your let's accomplish or let's overcome this issue. So that I'm glad we had that conversation before I even asked that question.
Yeah. Now, in addition to that, I think that even so that our nutrition solution is very good, I think that there is a lot of way to improve it. And my vision, if you'll ask me where I want to InsideTracker to be, is to have your InsideTracker on your palm, in your smartphone. And when you walk in the street of, let's say, San Francisco, and you get into a restaurant, will come and tell you, hey, Michelle, this is not the best restaurant for you. But don't worry. There is a restaurant 50 yards from here that is really good. And then you'll say, I don't want to go to the other restaurant because we are lazy. You'll say, hey, Michelle, don't worry about it. In this restaurant, the best dish for you is this dish number one. Okay, so basically, be a guardian angel for health for you and allow you to make the decision every point that you need to make a decision.
Mm-hmm. Would you consider having a concierge service so that there would be a professional who would be your guardian angel, as you say, that isn't just a online aspect to this whole process, but it has actually a human element?
Yeah, so we have a team of nutritionists that working in our science team. They are RDs, and we are not, let's say, advertising it. But every time that one of our user asking a question or would like to speak with our a nutrition expert, we are not then happy to do that, and we are not charging for that because I think that I want to give them a service, but also want to learn what are their challenges and then try to improve the platform based on that. So we are
Because that, yeah, I'm sorry, but that data that you're getting is going to be so valuable to you for
correct.
your, you know, for your, you know, in your software protocol
Correct.
for doing the research that you do and using real life customers as your data point. So yeah, I can see why you would want to do that. So I didn't mean to interrupt you because I see the time is, this always happens with someone fascinating like you, is I look at my watch and I say, oh no, couldn't I just have 15 more minutes with him? So I just wanted to make sure that our viewers know that your offer for them was, I received it through Jonathan, your sales director, and I hope he shared it with you, that you're going to offer our viewers using the code Ageless a 25% discount off of their first interaction with you. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work, but if you could have Jonathan just send me some details, I'll put it on my website, and then our viewers can access that through my website, and I'm sure you'll receive some contacts through this because people are, you know, everybody's concerned about health these days, and
Yeah.
and you know what you're doing is way above the norm of just going in to see an allopathic doctor and getting a blood test and say, oh, you know, slam bam, thank you ma'am, and see you later. You know, they give you 15 minutes. You're doing in-depth analysis, and it's really life-changing for people. So I congratulate and honor you for, you know, your vision and the work that you've been doing. I know, you know, this is what, 11, not 2009 you started the company, but of course you were preparing for this your whole life, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything that you would like to say in closing? And I don't want to be, I have to cut you short a little bit, but is there anything that you would say to us as kind of a closing comment?
Yeah, I think that it's everyone need to look at his body as the most important vehicle that he have. And unfortunately, today we are taking care of our cars better than our body. So, sleep well, eat well, drink a lot of water, don't drink too much alcohol, rest a lot, exercise. That's the basic. And everyone need to do that. But if you want to do more and optimize yourself, then InsideTracker is definitely the place. But even without InsideTracker, you can do a lot just by following the basics. So I really recommend everyone, especially in those tough times with the COVID, that pay more attention to your body. If you won't take care of it, nobody will take care of it.
That's perfect, Gil. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I just want to say a few remarks in closing and wish you so much success, and let our viewers know that we're very blessed to have Dr. Gil Blander today with us, because he has been doing the research in anti-aging and longevity really since he was a child. I think he had a vision and a passion. And this is what another part of Ageless and Timeless is: finding your passion, pursuing it, and being the best version of yourself and whatever it is that you choose to as your path and your journey. So this is a man who, you know, has found his passion early on and followed it, and look what he's doing for all of us. He's totally giving back. So I encourage you to look online at InsideTracker. You know, I never promote individual companies or products, but when I believe in something, I always want to share with my viewers, because that's what I'm all about. So thank you so much for being with us today. And please, any feedback that you have, I'm always available. You have all my information on my website, agelessandtimeless.com. And be well and take care, and God bless. Thank you so much.
My love for you is immeasurable. My respect for you immense. You're ageless, timeless, lace and fineness, your beauty